Hi, good evening and welcome to the Daily Rambam Shiur, lesson 214 and 215, Metamme'ey Mishkav uMoshav, from chapter 4 until 9. In today's week's parsha, we're reading about the great run that Yaakov Avinu was running away from Lavan, and while Lavan managed to chase and finally get to him, the Torah describes how he was searching for his idols. He comes into the room of Rochel and he was suspecting that she may be the one, as Rashi says, Hikirbo Shemash Meshonis Hoiso, she may have a tendency to be the one who took away those idols, and she hid those idols, Vatesimim Bekar HaGomol, she put it underneath the seat where she was sitting on top of the camel, and she was sitting on top of them. And she tells to her father, I won't be able to stand up, Ki derech noshim li, Vaychapes ve'limotzo es hatrofim. So in fact, from this pasuk, there is a very interesting connection, not only based on the common topic that is being described in this pasuk, where she tells to her father that she won't be able to stand up, that she is a nido. And apparently, according to many of the commentators, in those times, a nido was having physical pains and discomfort that made her entire standing as an entire difficult task. There is another commentators which explains that at that time a nido was actually observing certain customs that are the customs of al-choke, of distance, which later were adopted, and for that reason even a person like Lavan was able to understood her comment about derech noshim li. But even further than this, there is both in the Talmud, both in Maseches Avodah Zorah and in Maseches Shabbos, a reference to two halachic points. Point number one, that how I know that Avodah Zorah will be Metamme'ey Kenido, from this pasuk, because she was actually sitting on top of Avodah Zorah, and she was saying a reference to this type of trophim idols, derech noshim li, since the reference of the Avodah Zorah was compared to the concept of nido, comes to teach us that same way as nido metamo bemaso, Avodah Zorah happens to be also to be metamme'ey bemaso. There is another teaching that comes to teach us how careful she was in her expression, that though she was saying something that may appear as a lie, but the way she verbalized it, in order it should not be a lie. And what she was basically saying, Lo yochal lokum miponecho, I won't be able to stand, since what is underneath me is the same item that has the same status of tumo as a derech noshim. There is, by the way, a very interesting also Gemara in Avodah Zorah that explains how come in the Persian language the terminology and the explanation of anido, it's called dashanto. And the Gemara teaches that they have learned, they have a asmachte from this pasuk. Dashante is a noitrikoin, is a combination of derech noshim, and for that they are called anido dashanto miloshin derech noshim li. So yesterday we were covering the Hilchos Metamme'ey Mishkav uMoshav regarding the how far I will deck backdate tumo. In other words, we are speaking that the Isha have discovered that she is indeed a Zovo Anido, and the question, how far will I apply a status of tumo towards every taharos she have done in the past? So the general rule of thumb will be, or I will go to the previous inspection, what we call pkido, her last check, if it happens to be less than 24 hours before she discovered that she is nido, and in case that it is way before, I will go and backdate to 24 hours. So, or I will go to the last pkido if it is less than 24 hours, or to 24 hours. However, there is a group of ladies which they are called mechusrei domim, and I will not backdate her previous, I will not apply any status of tumo towards any taharos she was involved before the discovery of this blood, since I will rule the ruling of Dayon Shaton. Dayon Shaton, I'm satisfied with the current discovery. Since I found out currently that she is in a state of nido, so only from now on, everything that she will be touching or carrying or sleeping or sitting on will be tomei. But anything that she was doing before, I will assume taharo. The reason, as we said, they are called mechusoi domim, the presumption that they have no blood. And there are 4 types of those lady. One of called meuberes, a pregnant lady; meniko, a lady who is breastfeeding; psulo, a virgin. Later we're going to learn not a regular type of virginity, but we are speaking to those one who never experienced any menstruation cycle so far; and skeno, an elderly lady after the period of the menopause. Later, the Rambam enters to very specific resolution about the precise definition of each and every one of them. For example, meuberes, a pregnant lady, will be considered only such a lady that the fetus is recognizable. A meniko, a breastfeeding lady, though in reality she is not feeding any longer because for one reason or another she concluded the period of feeding, nevertheless, until 24 months after the birth, she will be considered to be meinekes, a breastfeeding for that context. When we're speaking about besulo, as we have mentioned before, it's not a conventional type of virginity, but it is a state of a lady who never experienced, due to her youth, any form of menstruation so far. And zekeno, elderly, is any lady that a period of 3 months passed by and no blood was discovered, and she is in such a state that her friends will refer to her as elderly, and she won't be embarrassed by that type of reference. As we have mentioned before, part of the categories of those people who are considered to be mechusoi domim is a besulo, someone who never discovered any menstruation period so far. So though so far she have not experienced it, but eventually she will have to see sooner or later blood. So here will be depend what type of a minor is she. Is she a minor that her time to see is expected, or her time to see is not expected. If she's a lady, she's a girl, that it is expected out of her due to her age and physiological structure to see, so after 2 times she experienced a cycle, then at the second time she is losing the privilege of what we call dioshaito, is treating the blood and applying tumo only from now on. After 2 times of menstruation, I will apply and extend and backdate the tumo as any lady, or to 24-hour period towards the past, or until the previous checkup inspection. However, if it is a girl that even younger, that her time is not due, then I will require 3 times in order to cancel the status of dioshaito, of the status of treating the blood and applying tume from now on. Also, even after I've already switched her status to any regular lady, if on this young girl 3 months passed without any menstruation, I will again apply the status of dioshaito. However, if after 3 months she saw again, then she will be Metamme'ey retroactively like any lady. There is another type of a lady that again I will be treating her as a woman who is mechuseres domim. For example, a lady that managed to see blood after the days of toihar. Days of toihar is the period until 40 days after the birth of a male, or 80 days after a period of a lady, of a female, that biblically any blood she sees in this period, it's considered to be yemei toihar, it is pure blood. Biblically, though, today we are not practicing it any longer for different reason, but biblically, in such a case, if she sees blood after the period of 40 or respectively 80 days, then this blood will be treated again as dioshaito and will be contaminated only from now on, but not retroactively. A lady who is generally involved in taharis, she used to increase and frequently check herself in order to avoid any possible transmitting of tumo to taharis, pure object that she is involved in. There is another discussion regarding the stains, and there is a difference between those stains which are clearly where they are coming from, between those stains that I found them in the street. So for example, if it is clearly that those stains are coming from a Jewish source, then they are certainly tummy, as we have covered the subject yesterday. If the stains are coming from non-Jews, though that non-Jews generally, they under the decree, a rabbinical decree, they will be considered zovim, but nevertheless the ksomim, the stain decree, was not applicable to them. So for that reason, any stains who are coming from goyim will be pure. However, if I found the stains, it's not clearly where they are from. Either way, if they will be tohir, they will be pure, because again, if they belong to non-Jews, they will be tohir anyway, and if they are belongs to Jews, I'm not suspecting Jews to throw their stains away because they are not suspected in that, and their way is always to hide those stains. Also, after the death, the blood of Aisha will still be metame. In addition to tumas meis, additional tumo, exactly like tumas nido. The second chapter deals with the status of those who are Metamme'ey Mishkav uMerkav, as we are speaking, Zov, Onido, and Yeledes. After their flow have stopped, they will still be Tomei as long as they were not entering and dipping in the mikveh. And even a Yeledes, someone who gave birth, that was not going to a mikveh, even after 7 days to Zohor and 14 days of Nekevo, where biblically the blood will be considered Yemei Toihar, pure blood, nevertheless, since she has not gone to the mikveh, she will be considered to be Tomei, and the blood will be treated as the blood of a nido. But even sometimes a lady will go to a mikveh after the birth, and nevertheless the blood will be Tomei. In what case? If the lady gave birth while she was in a state of Zovo. As such, though that she may benefit from Yemei Toihar, but nevertheless, due to the fact that she gave birth while she was in a state of Azovo, Shivas Nekim are required. And until the Shivas Nekim are being counted by, she will be considered Tomei, and the entire period until the end of the Yemei Toihar will be considered as a Tvulas Yoim Orich. Another example, a Metzora, a lady who gave birth, though that she may be benefiting from Yemei Taharo, but nevertheless, since she is in a state of Tzoras, leprosy, the blood will be Tomei. There is two types of Zovois. There is Zovo Ktano and Zovo Gdoilo. Zovo Ktano is a lady who experienced the menstruation in these segregated days of Yemei Zivo, as long as she saw it only for 1 day or 2 days. Shivas Nekim are not necessary, and Midorais, biblically, she can just go to the mikveh, and if she haven't seen until the end of the day, she will be Tohir. So, since this Zovo Ktano, which are going to the mikveh right after sunrise, the day that she is treating as a standby day, and she waits until the night. So any contacts she had, whether by physically touching an object, food, or a kli, or another human, or even further, beiloso, she had intimate relation, those mago and beilo will be on a standby. If she haven't seen any blood throughout the day, it turns out that they are tohir. However, if she experienced and discovered any blood, so her taharois will be retroactively tomei, and in case she had intimate relation, the boil will be chayov, will be liable in korban if it was done b'shogig, and kores if it was done b'meizid. Zovo or Azovo, after they went to the mikveh, they should still not get involved the same day in any taharis, because they may still see any type of tomei flow and will contaminate their taharis retroactively. In the third chapter, there is a very detailed description about the nature of the transmission of Mishkav, which can be called uMoshav. Mishkav translation is any form to bedding, to sleep, to lay. uMoshav is to sit, which are basically the same thing. But then there is Merkav. Merkav is a platform for riding on a horse, on a camel, and any type of a form. Though both of them will be considered to be Av HaTumo, and they will be transmitting Tumo to Odom, a human being, and utensils via Mago, direct contact, direct physical contact. And when it comes to a human, in addition to be able to transmit Tume upon him with direct physical contact, they will be able to transmit Tume towards him also with Maso. Maso is by carrying him, or him carrying them. However, in uMoshav, when it comes to uMoshav, has one severity. When we're speaking about Tumas Mago, so a person who is touching the uMoshav and at the same time he carries garments or any type of kelim in a state that in one hand he is touching the uMoshav and on the other hand he is touching a kelim, so the state will lo pirash mi metamov, he is not detached from the source of tumo, he will be able to transmit tumo also to the begodim. However, when it comes to Merkav, it doesn't have that severity via Mago. When it comes to the tumo of Maso, carrying, there is no difference between uMoshav and Merkav, and as long as they are connected to the source of tumo, which in Hebrew it's being defined as lo pirash mi metamov, was not separated from metamov, from the source of his tumo, they will be able to transmit the tumo also to the begodim or any other kelim that they are attached to. There is another type of a tumo, which are lighter tumo. It's called tumas madof. Madof is anything that is above the zav, and their status will be exactly the status of those tumois that he is in direct physical contact with them, that they will be rishon letumo, and will be able to transmit the tumo only to oichlin umashkin, food and drinks. Due to a rabbinical decree, Azov and Azovo will be able to transmit tumo even after their death. The reason is for the decree because there is a possibility that some of them will lose conscious, will faint, and people will think that he's actually died. And if I will eliminate any tumas of Zovo, later they will be revived and people will treat them as tehuro, and in reality there is no tahara whatsoever. So for that reason they applied tumo even in a state of death. On the other hand, a non-Jew who died, though while he is alive he will be a zav, nevertheless, after his death, he is not a zav any longer. The reason, because any type of a decree that the rabbis introduced, they have introduced the following rule, that I'm not applying a decree to a decree. Ein goizrim gzeiro ligzeiro. Towards the end of the chapter, the Rambam clarifies that when we're speaking about the tumo of Mishkav or uMoshav, so the real description, even there is many layers of mattresses, one on top of the other, and the zav laying on the top mattress, all the mattresses underneath the top, they are all turning to be Tomei, and they turning not only to be Tomei and Avatumo, anything that was placed on top of them will be affected by Tumo. So if it was food or utensils, it became Rishon Letumo. However, if a human being was laying on the Mishkav, he will be even more severe, as we have learned, that while he is laying on top of the mattress, he will be able to transmit Tumo to Kalim. In order to transmit, though, the Tumo of Mishkav, it must be a utensil, an object that was made to begin with to be fitting the purpose of sitting or laying. However, if it was only food or drinks that the Zav is being supported by them, they will remain Tehirim. However, if a person carries them, he will be Tomei. So if we will summarize, the effect of the Tumo will sound like this. Anything that will be on top of the Zov will be Tomei, whether it is human, whether it is Kalim, whether it is food or drink. All of them will be Rishon Letumo. Anything that is being parked on top of the Zov. Anything that will be underneath the Zov itself and not going to be touched by him will be Tohir. Besides a human or an item that was made, designed, manufactured for sleeping or sitting or riding. The difference will be that the human will be a Rishon Letumo, and those Kalim objects that are fit for Mishkav and uMoshav, they will be considered to be Avatumo, as we have covered a few times. This Mishkav, this bed, or the item that can be used as a bed or as a chair, in order to be transmitted the Tumeh from the Zav must transmit it in either one of the 5 following ways. Or he is sitting on top of them, or he is laying on top of them, or he is hanging, or they is reclining on top of them, and they are supporting him. And each and every one is called Midras Hazav. In order for the Midras or uMoshav to transmit Tumo upon a person who is Tohir, so there is 7 ways. 5 of those ways that we have mentioned: sitting, laying, hanging, supported, or hanging, and on top of it, Mago uMaso, touching and carrying. However, in order for the Zav to transmit Tumo while he is laying, there is a specific requirements that the majority of his body must cover the object of the so-called bed. If this condition was not achieved, the bed will remain pure. According to this principle, a Zav that is being laying or positioned on 5 benches towards their length, he contaminated them. However, if he was laying on their width they will remain pure, since the majority of his body was not positioned, not on even one of them. However, if he was sleeping, then even if he was sleeping on the weed, he will still transmit the tumor, because there is a likelihood that while he was sleeping, he turned around on all of them. There is also a difference whether he lays on top of an animal and underneath the animal there is so-called 4 legs, or on a bed and underneath the bed there are 4 legs. So while the bed will become Tomei, since a bed cannot lay on 3 beds, the animal or the supporters that supporting the animals will be Tohil. The reason, since an animal theoretically can stand on 3 legs, so therefore the 4th legs will be considered Metamme'ey. Since each and every one of the legs can claim, I'm the one who is Metamme'ey, so I'm not the one who is actually supporting the entire behemoth. For that reason, if a Zav was laying on a behemoth, so all the supports of the behemoth will remain Tohil. Also, in order for the Zav to transmit, when I say Zav, I don't mean only Zav, I mean all those 4 types of Metamme'ey Mishkav uMoshav, which is Zov, Zovanido, and Yeredes. In order for him to be Metamme'ey, needs to be something that was designed to begin with for laying. If it is an item that people will say, well, we need to use it to the primary purpose of the manufacturing and design. For example, if a person turned a barrel, which is a container, a big container of storage, and he made a chair or bed out of it, this bed won't be able to transmit the tumah of the Zav, since it is primarily made for storage. And at the moment a person will sit, they will say, stand up, we need to utilize the purpose of this object in order for it to be a great container. However, if this particular item, object, can simultaneously do multitasking, both serve its primarily purpose and at the same time being used as a uMoshav or a Mishkav, which is a sit or bed for the Zav, then it will be able to transmit the tumah. The second chapter of lesson 215 deals about the special chidush, the special twist when it comes to the tumah of Midras. That not only a person will be affected by the tumah if the tumah touched him, but also even if the tumah carried him. Not only if the person who is pure carried the tumah, but if the item that is tomei carried him, in this case if the Zav carried him. There is another severity in Tumas Midras, that even items which are generally able to block tumah, for example, Tzomid Posil is able to protect and block the tumah in order to filter the tumah for the contents that inside the Tzomid Posil. Won't be able to block the tumah when it comes to Tumas Midras. On the other hand, there is one kulo, which one light aspect that if a zav entered his hand into a kli cheres, though generally a kli cheres will be metamme'ey mi'aviroi, will be metame from the air, but not in this case, since a zav cannot be metame lo ivorim, as we have learned before. In order for the zav to transmit the tum'o, it needs to be done begufoi or beruboim. There is another requirement when it comes to hesed, any movement, which is a derivative of tumas maso, of azav or Metamme'ey Mishkav uMoshav, that when the zav actually carrying somebody, the source of the carrying cannot be from a hidden source. Illustration: when a person puts a stick between the wrinkles of his body, and via the stick he is able to move something. Since those wrinkles happens to be in a hidden spot, and the Torah, according to the oral tradition, was able to derive a zav is transmitting tumo via carrying, via shaking, so same way as touching is generally done in a revealed part of his body and not in a hidden or concealed part. For that reason, if a zav was actually carrying any item via a stick that is being wrapped with wrinkles of parts of his body, won't be able to transmit tumo. There is an interesting halacha regarding a scale where on one hand of the scale there is a object that fits to be a mishkav, and on the other scale there is the actual body of the zav. So if the zav, he managed to pull the scale, so he is considered to be, as the kli will be considered as a utensil that the zav touched, and will be a tomei rishon letumo. However, if the opposite, if the bed was able to pull down to be heavier and lift the zav, so by doing so, the bed have turned to be a uMoshav and became a avatumo, and therefore the level of tumo is way severer, much more severe, if the zav would be able to override and to tip the scale. So again, depends who is the one who tips the scale. If the zav tips the scale, then the level of tumo is not as severe. If the bed or the chair are able to tip the scale, then the tumo is way much more severe. When a zav and a pure man coming into a boat or climbing on a ladder, so depends how strong and stable they are. The more stable the ladder or the boat are, the pure man will remain in its purity, because his chances to be affected by a shake or movement of the zav are very slim. However, if the latter or the both are lacking any stability, so the likelihood of exposure to the hesed, to the movement, to the shake of the zav are higher, and for that reason he will be tomei. When we're speaking about tumas maso, anything that is being carried, let it be a finger, a pinky, on of the Zav upon the Toher, or the opposite, a pinky of the Toher upon the Zav, the pure man will become Tomei. When talking about a mago, not only a actual flesh contact will be considered a mago, but even chiburim, something that is attached to the flesh, hair, nails, teeth, they are also transmitting tumo between the Zav to the pure man and the opposite. The third chapter of lesson 215, there is a distinction in Hesed Hazav, in the movement and carrying of the Zav, whether something done directly or a result of vibration. For example, if an item was well attached to the ground with strong nails and pegs, and as a result of the clap of the hitting of the Zav, some items on the ladder or any piece of furniture was shaking. The shook was not a direct cause of the hesed, of the movement of the Zav, but it is rather a vibration which considered to be koichoi or koyach koichoi. And for that reason, even in reality, the object fell out of it, which seemingly there is such a great effect, nevertheless, they will remain pure since there is no direct influence of the action of the Zav about what actually fell. However, if we're speaking about an unstable or a broken ladder or any furniture or door that is not connected with the right glue, and as a result of hitting of the Zav, things were not even falling but just moving, they will be Tomei. Thank you very much and have a great Shabbos.